What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Hope all is well. And as you guys know, it's a very dry time when it comes to the NBA offseason right now. So I was like, why not? I'm gonna bring you guys a story video. And I've actually had this plan for like over a year when I think about it, because I was planning on bringing you guys this video when I first started up the channel, but I wanted to bring it at the right time when I had a decent amount of people subscribed. And I've had this question in my chat before, and I've answered it sometimes, just not to my full potential because I wanted to save it for a video. So if you guys are wondering what that question is, you probably see it in the title. How did you become a New York Knicks fan? And let me know down below in the comment section, how did you become a New York Knicks fan? Because I believe I have a pretty unique way, the way I became a New York Knicks fan, because I'm not a New Yorker. I wasn't born in New York. I've never lived in New York. I've been in New York a couple times. That was to see a Knicks game, and that was also when I visited New York when I was very young. And one of the main reasons New York is very close to my heart, besides being a Knicks fan, is because my dad, he grew up in Oyster Bay, and he also was born in the city. He was born in Manhattan, and he's one of the main reasons that I became a New York Knicks fan, but it's obviously way more than that. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's a mixture of things, it's a combination of things, how I became a New York Knicks fan. So my dad was born in Manhattan. He grew up a Yankees fan, he grew up a Giants fan, and he grew up a New York Knicks fan, a Rangers fan too, but he didn't watch hockey a lot, football and basketball, and he also watched baseball. Those are pretty much his main sports. But if you guys are wondering, I was born in 2004 and I'm 18 years old, so I haven't seen the greatest of New York Knicks teams. Obviously, I've gone to see the Knicks make it to the playoffs in 2013 when we won 54 games, and I've obviously got to see us go to the playoffs 1 year ago. Julius Randle, amazing season. RJ took a step forward. Reggie Bullock, you guys know. If you've been subscribed to my channel and you've been a New York Knicks fan at least the past 3 years, I don't really have to ramble on about that. So I get this question a lot because if I'm not from New York, if I'm not a New Yorker, the Knicks aren't a team you really jump on the bandwagon with unless you were maybe born in the 90s or born in the 80s and then you saw the team in the 90s because they're obviously damn good in the 90s. So my dad definitely got me locked in on the Knicks, but obviously someone could tell you about the Knicks, someone could tell you about a team, but it's up to you if you really want to focus and concentrate on that team. So I grew up playing on like the little Tykes hoop when I was extremely young. I played on a mini hoop when I was little, like the ones you could put on your door, play with your friends, and I pissed off my dad a lot with that. I'd wake him up from naps, just the freaking rim and the backboard just rattling against the door. And then we would eventually have to put a towel under it so it didn't make a lot of noise when we shot. I remember specifically playing with my brother's friend Maceo, who I guess was my friend as well. It was mainly my brother's friend. If I'm looking back, my brother was like, don't call my friend your friend. But yes, Maceo was my boy. And my friend Alan, who actually played on a basketball team with back in elementary school, and my dad was actually our coach. He was our coach 1 year, and then the year before that, we had a totally different coach. So I did play basketball growing up, played for my school team, and I also played in a rec league when I was younger as well. I didn't play it crazy long because other obstacles that got in the way that I'm not fully going to get into, which is pretty personal, but I just love playing the game of basketball. I was just locked in. I was very passionate about it. But besides playing in leagues, I would play at St. Jude's almost every day, which is a church with like a huge group of friends. It was my brother's friends, our friends. Pretty much we all had the same friends, and we would play with my friend Alan's father sometimes. We would play with my dad. It would get extremely competitive because I'm 8, 9 years old. Like I moved to New Jersey when I was like 10 maybe, or I was like maybe 6, 7 playing. I was like 7. I was extremely young when we would sometimes play with high schoolers, middle schoolers, and there's me that thinks I'm gonna win, and I get frustrated. There's times I'm crying, sometimes I'm throwing the ball, I'm rage quitting. You know how you are when you're younger, and I wasn't that strong enough to shoot the basketball. So back in the day, I would kick my feet up, use all my strength to shoot a three-pointer. I looked like Dick Barnett from the '70s back in the day when with Walt Frazier, Willis Reed. And my dad was born in '69, so the New York Knicks winning in '70 and '73. My dad did not see those days. Obviously, he knew about those days, but he didn't see Willis Reed coming out, Walt Frazier's historical games versus the Lakers in the NBA Finals in '70 and '73. He didn't see Phil Jackson back playing with the New York Knicks and all that. So we would play basketball almost every single day in these outdoor courts. I remember there being this very good basketball hoop, and then the two other ones that there was kind of like a slanted road, and it was or slanted street. It was hard to shoot on. It was interesting the way it was set up. So whenever I would dive for a loose ball when it came to practice, a game, or save the ball from coming out of bounds, my dad loved players that played extremely hard. He was like, you may not have the most talent in the world, looking back at some of those '90s Knicks teams, but you played extremely hard and you played with a lot of heart. That's why it's so much respect for Charles Oakley. It's so much respect for Anthony Mason. Like whenever I would dive for a loose ball, or I would dive on the floor like a lunatic, but I was extremely young. All the other kids were probably like, "What is this dude doing?" But I wanted to impress my dad because he respected those players so much. So my dad would be like, "You look like Charles Oakley," and his favorite player was actually John Starks from the '90s. You know, sharpshooter, played extremely hard. He was undersized, but he bagged groceries, overcame a lot of adversity, and ended up being an NBA All Star. And one of the main reasons we went on to go to an NBA championship in the '90s versus the Rockets. And my dad would just tell me so many stories about the Knicks. So I would say I played basketball before I really watched the Knicks. So my dad, like, just playing basketball led to stories about the Knicks. Just telling me about Patrick Ewing, telling me about Hubert Davis. I was playing NBA 2K together, him using the New York Knicks. He would wake me up in the middle of the night. Let's play 2K. Let's play 2K, you know? And when I would beat him, he's like, we're not going to sleep until I beat you. And sometimes it would just take so freaking long. But we enjoyed playing 2K together a lot. I remember it being 2K13. We were we were these types of people. We had 2K13 on the Wii when you had to flick the remote. Eventually, we upgraded to the PS3 during that time. But I'm telling me stories, good and bad, about the Knicks, and specifically bad. If you're a '90s Knicks fan or you saw those days, plug your ears. Patrick Ewing missed finger roll. I remember going back watching a documentary a couple years ago. Reggie Miller making fun of it. Like Patrick Ewing really missed that, but my dad always defended Patrick Ewing. His knees weren't the greatest. Like he never had consistently good knees. He would tell me about John Stark struggling in Game 7, but he was saying Pat Riley messed up. He should have benched him. He clearly didn't have it, and saying we should have won it in Game 6 if Akeem Olajuwon didn't block that shot. John Starks was on. We would have won the NBA championship. He would also tell me about how Anthony Mason, one of the worst inbounders on the Knicks team, rest in peace to Anthony Mason. All respect to him, his son, his entire family. Eight 8 points in 9 seconds, Reggie Miller. But then he would tell me about good times. Allen Houston versus Miami, first 8 seeds to go to the NBA Finals. We lost to the Spurs, but still amazing. That floater over the Miami Heat, you know, when they had Tim Hardaway, he would tell me Alonzo Mourning was Patrick Ewing's bitch. So I just loved hearing good times, bad times, and just, I was like, damn, I wish I could see those '90s Knicks because I didn't see that many good Knicks teams. I've seen like two good Knicks seasons or two winning seasons when it's come to being a Knicks fan. That's how bad it's been for me. It's different perspective for me as a young guy being a Knicks fan. So I would just go on my dad's phone. I would look at YouTube videos. I would just look through history, Patrick Ewing highlights, Charles Oakley highlights, and I could put it on my screen. I'll take a picture of it. And I remember being so excited when my Aunt Maureen that worked at the Palm, someone's being loud outside. I don't know why. Damn motorcycle. So my Aunt Maureen actually worked at Palm. Charles Barkley would go through there. Allen Iverson, Charles Oakley. She was a bartender and actually got an Oakley signed jersey for me for my birthday. 2-0 from Charles Oakley, and no other 6, 7-year-old knew who Charles Oakley was, but I was so damn excited. I wish I had the picture, but the jersey looks like a freaking dress on me, and I just got so passionate. And then eventually I came across like Pete Maravich drops over 60 on the New York Knicks back in the day. So I loved learning about the histories. If it was Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton, one of the first African American players in the NBA, that's so amazing. Reggie Guerin back in the day, just looking at Dick Barnett, Dave DeBusschere, Walt Frazier. I have a Walt Frazier action figure with his rookie card that's so beat up nowadays. And I look it up, that shit's so expensive now, but it's a gift for my dad, so you should never sell a gift. So I was just so passionate about the New York Knicks, and I just loved learning about it. And even when the Knicks were bad, I loved learning about the New York Knicks as well. So I remember, like, it's funny though, because when I first started watching the Knicks, they were good. We won 54 games, you know. We were one of the top seeds in the Eastern Conference. We lost in the second round to Indiana. We defeated the Boston Celtics in the first round, and there was definitely a lot of heat between the Celtics. You know, the rivalries throughout the years with the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks, at least when they were good. You know, Kevin Garnett saying to Carmelo Anthony, "La la, your wife smells like Honey Nut Cheerios," and that was a whole disaster. But it was such a great feeling when we beat the Celtics in the first round. Hated the Celtics, But I hated the Indiana Pacers for some reason even more. I did not like Tyler Hansborough. I hated him. I didn't like Danny Granger. I hated Roy Hibbert, and of course he blocked Carmelo Anthony's shot. But my favorite moment from that series, Iman Shumpert's putback dunk. Iman Shumpert was probably my favorite player from that Knicks team, which is funny to say because he couldn't shoot to save his life, but he could defend. And he was athletic as hell, and he had a nice handle. I remember him dropping Paul Pierce. I remember him dropping a couple players. He was fun to watch, but he couldn't fully develop a jumper. Injury got in his way, but I liked him. Out of Georgia Tech, when I went back, watched his highlights, and yeah, I remember Carmelo Anthony on that squad. We know Carmelo Anthony, obviously one of the best scorers of all time. A year later, we were like one game out of the playoffs. We didn't end up making the playoffs, and I remember like Carmelo Anthony, one of the best scorers of all time. You could talk negative about maybe his leadership, but no doubt about it, one of the best scorers, triple threat, some of the best footwork. I remember, I believe my mom got me and my dad Hawks Bulls tickets when I lived in Georgia during that time, and my dad was like, "Who are you rooting for?" I was like, "I guess the Hawks." I was kind of confused, so I didn't know how like standings really worked back then. We ended up missing the playoffs by like one game. The Hawks ended up being that 8th seed, and I was like, "No, you're rooting for the Bulls because we needed the Bulls to win, and then we needed us to win to get to the playoffs." We missed the playoffs by like one game in 2014, which sucked. But Carmelo Anthony had 62 points versus the Bobcats that year, I believe. It was freaking terrific. They didn't double team him for some reason until like the very end. He cooked Michael Kidd Gilchrist. He cooked that overall Charlotte Bobcats team. We know the history of the Bobcats, but then Charlotte Bobcats are obviously the Hornets now. But that 2013 team, I love Jason Kidd. My dad wasn't a big fan of Raymond Felton. He thought Raymond Felton was solid, but he was like, I'm tired of seeing him dribble the ball up the court. He was lukewarm with Raymond Felton because he was always like, if we had a better point guard, we would be a finals contender. That was my dad's thoughts during that time. He was like, I like our overall roster besides that, but for some reason at point guard, we need more than just a solid point guard. We had J.R. Smith during that time, Kenyon Martin, Tyson Chandler, Steve Novak. I believe we had Kurt Thomas still during that time as well. I think I mentioned J.R. Smith then. I started to not like J.R. Smith. I remember like a couple years after when he started untying people's shoes, we looked like a freaking clown show. But then I remember in 2014, like I said, we missed the playoffs by one game, but that was the 2013-14 season. Or no, that was 2014-15 season. No, that was. I'm trying to think at the top of my head. 2013-14. No, that all right. So yeah, that was 2013-14 season. Then the 14-15 season, we got Porzingis because we won 17 games. And back then, me, my dad, my brother, we had like ABC, we had the news channel, we had PBS Kids. So like we had good cable television. We were able to watch the Knicks games, especially when they were good. But then when they got bad, my dad was like, "I'm not paying for this shit." But then eventually we got like this cable television that had like three channels, like I mentioned, and yeah, we watched them if they were on ABC, which is really rare. We know ABC. I'm not sure if they're still the home of the NBA Finals, but at one point they were the home of the ABC NBA Finals. I remember watching that Spurs and Heat series, but I remember vividly watching, like visually just watching this Knicks game, and I believe it was the meme game. Remember, it was like when someone uploaded this a year ago when the Knicks made the playoffs. If you weren't a fan of the Knicks then, don't be a fan of the Knicks now. And it was when the Lakers had Jordan Hill, who we drafted, pick after Stephen Curry, Robert Zachary, the Lakers when they had Jordan Clarkson. Yeah, it was just a Ryan Kelly, I believe. And then the Knicks had like Langston Galloway, they had Quincy Acey, they had Lou Amundsen, Alexi Shved. It was a disaster. And I remember the Knicks won and I was excited, and it was just such an awful Knicks year. And then the whole Phil Jackson thing was a disaster when he went on to sign Shannon Brown first. Um, signed Lamar Odom when he was going through things. Tim Hardaway Jr., who I was excited about. We went on to trade for Jaren Grant, who didn't turn out well. Credit to my dad, though. He did say Porzingis was going to be good, though. My dad liked Porzingis. Like, my dad was a nerd when it came to the pre-draft process and the NBA draft and all that. He was like 7'3", he could shoot the ball. If he gets stronger, he could be something. And I don't care what anyone says. You could be a Porzingis hater, but before Porzingis got hurt, he was special. You're not supposed to be 7'3", move that well, and shoot the ball that well. You could say, yeah, he struggled in the post and rebound consistently well. I know we had Canner as well, and he actually got better rebounding the ball through Dallas. And the Wizards as well. I believe went up to like 8, 9 rebounds per game for his career after the New York Knicks days. But before he got hurt, he moved extremely fluid and he was a special talent. So props to my dad because we know tons of people were obviously booing Kristaps Porzingis. So when we did finally make it to the playoffs a year ago, it was just such a great feeling though. It really was because the last time I saw them in the playoffs was 2013. Not like I was a fan of them in the 70s. Not like I saw Bernard King. Not like I was a fan of them in the 90s. But just seeing false hope of Kevin Knox, seeing false hope of Frank Ntilikina, who I never really talked to my dad about during that time, and the whole Porzingis or the whole, I believe this was 2016, Porzingis' second year. It was 2016 or 2017. The whole Phil Jackson and Charles Oakley thing, or not Phil Jackson, Charles Oakley, James Dolan thing. That was a whole mess. I don't think my dad was around during that time to talk to him about that, but it just hit me so hard when we did make it to the playoffs a year ago because my dad would always say to me when we would talk over the phone when we didn't live together, this is the year the Knicks are making to the playoffs. He would say that every freaking year since we made it in 2013. And it sucks my dad didn't get to see it. Even though we lost against the Hawks, it was still an awesome atmosphere. And he would have loved that team because that team played extremely hard. Hopefully Randall gets his head on his shoulders right this upcoming season. But just seeing Reggie Bullock, how hard he played, seeing RJ take the next step, and we'll see what like Nerlens Noel, he stepped in, did his thing. Derrick Rose played with so much heart. Alec Burks, I thought, played with so much heart. Just guys that maybe aren't like superstars. They played extremely hard that season and overachieved, you could say. But yeah, just Phil Jackson was a mess. I was so happy when he was fired. Jeff Hornacek, I didn't think he was the worst coach in the world. Like his roster is kind of effed up because if think about it, we were so bad to the point with our roster that it was like we got mad at him when he didn't play Kuzminskis. Kuzminskis was ass when I'm thinking back at it. Our standards were just set so low. But when we had freaking we thought it was a super team where we're excited about Porzingis, Melo, Courtney Lee, Derrick Rose, like Joakim Noah's freaking contract. Like holy shit, that was bad. That was so freaking bad. Oh my gosh. So it was just a disaster with the organization. I remember being hyped about David Fizdale. Oh, we have the right guy to attract free agents, develop young guys. Disaster. Um, Mike Miller, I thought did a good job stepping in, but Derek Fisher was a complete mess. I know I'm all over the place, but this is the way I tell my stories. I want to say I'm the greatest storyteller, but having Derek Fisher, him DMing like players on his roster's wives and all that, just oh my gosh, those rosters were so bad, so bad looking back. It was just a freaking. We had Ricky Lito. We didn't have Giannis Antetokounmpo. We had Thanasis Antetokounmpo, who was terrible. I remember us drafting Ojin Hormaz, who never played an NBA game. He was a second round pick, though. I believe he was like 55. But just seeing false draft pick after false draft pick, and yeah, we could hate on Leon with certain things, but no doubt about it. You look at our roster now when it comes to talent wise, it's way better than freaking just looking back at previous years, at least when I've been a Knicks fan. I know fans that have seen the Knicks in the 90s, maybe their standards are different, but I remember liking Derek Williams, resurgence, Mario Hezonja. We might have a resurgence here. Noah Vonleh, who I still kind of like. So we would just the roster construction just over the years. But yeah, that's pretty much how I became a New York Knicks fan. My dad tell me stories all the time. I'm just so passionate about the damn New York Knicks. No matter what they've put me through, I'm always gonna be a New York Knicks fan, and I haven't been through the worst. I know people that have obviously been through worse than me, but let me know down below in the chat. How did you become a New York Knicks fan? It's kind of tough around here. I live in South Jersey. Philadelphia 76ers fans attacking me, and yeah, I've never really been around Knicks fans like that, and I'm the only one in my household that's really a huge NBA fan. Or New York Knicks fan. My brother kind of stopped being into basketball after middle school. He never really watched it like crazy. He just played it, but it's one of the main reasons I started YouTube because I didn't really have anyone to talk basketball with anymore when my dad passed away, 2015. So yeah, guys, I really appreciate your support. Let me know down below your story. Thank you guys for being amazing. Peace out, y'all.